Good evening and welcome to this edition of Tok Piksa. It's been 2 decades since the last volcanic eruption in Rabaul, East New Britain Province. On the 19th of September 1994, Mount Tavurvur erupted and buried the entire town of Rabaul. About a week ago, on the 29th of August, a similar eruption occurred. But unlike 1994, the damage caused by last Friday's eruption was swift and severe. Food and water sources were destroyed by acidic ash showers in less than 5 hours. The Rabaul Volcanological Observatory reported no early indication of the eruption before it struck. Edwin Fidelis, who traveled to Rabaul 24 hours after the eruption, visited the affected areas and files tonight's Tok Piksa story.
As East New Britain Province prepares for a joint celebration to commemorate 20 years after the 1994 eruption, Tavurvur, the volcano that buried the town of Rabaul in 1994, erupted again. These pictures taken at around 4 a.m. on Friday, the 29th of August 2014, shows the initial stages of the eruption of Mount Tavurvur. Residents in Kokopo and Rabaul were woken to loud explosions between 3:30 and 4 a.m. in the morning. This was followed by heavy volcanic ashes which lasted for 48 hours.
Travel program morning is mila lugi mem mountain and paira guanta. Time should guanta milugi mem. Kirab miss na meta miss you kirab na. You help me you go pikini. Misana miarem miarem sila de mis miarem polis karem ronzam. Wala na usura tu kam. Rosimol man lo matupit. Rosimol go. Next move le miaram gen online mo malaguna. Rosmo. Stop siran lulgo toilet borbora.
On Saturday, the eruption subsided and the scene from the 2 days of continuous ashfall was devastating.
Around 3 o'clock ng bawte, we start like pahirapan mo sin ibinuk lo ni sound the sound will come up lo ang tabir lo mountain lo Tavurvur the sound will come up na same time beyond lo disla sound mo sen mountain ni pahirap now ang pahirap mo sen man mo kirap no good lo disla time ang pahirap.
The Rabaul Volcano Observatory has no clear indication a week or a day before the Tavurvur erupted.
From our perspective, the Volcanological Observatory, we can only see signs happening from the instrumentation. And so, we can guess what is going down there beneath the volcano. But we cannot prove what is going down there because there's no, avenue or no technology that can allow us to have that happen. And so in terms so along those lines and furthermore forecasting, we have information that we have that can provide short-term forecasting and long-term or intermediate or long-term forecasting. For the eruption that happened on Friday morning, the 29th of August, short-term precursors were virtually nil.
Officer in charge of the Rabaul Volcano Observatory, Ima Itikarai, said the onset of Friday's Tavurvur eruption caught Rabaul town unaware.
In terms of short-term forecasting, I am talking about days before the eruption, or 1 or 2 weeks, or maybe up to a month before the eruption happened. That's a short term. Intermediate is probably from months to years, and long term focus periods focused in is from many years down the line. So in terms of short term focused in like I said earlier, we didn't have any information that were recorded by the instrumentation to give us that opportunity to focus the eruption that happened. Seismicity, one of the main techniques that we use to monitor the volcano, didn't give any good indications. There were no earthquakes that occurred 1 or 2 days or 2 weeks earlier, and the trend of those earthquakes or the sizes of those earthquakes sort of increased, so that it would say that something was going to happen. In fact, in terms of seismicity, in the short-term precursor, there was no indications.
I arrived in Rabaul a day after the eruption. The level of volcanic activities have subsided. Much of the damages has already been done on the early hours of Friday.
Dislab mi pla stap long em lo kura kakaul lo is New Britain. Eman pla voice up we mi pla receive dislab mostly dust. Na olga ta kumu blo mi pla em bagarap. Na wara blo mi pla tu mi pla sleep dai lo try pla 3 o'clock wara blo mi pla dasi pulu mapim. Na now mi pla live antemol wara blo well. Mi pla dringim. Na kai tu mi pla safa lo kai.
The town, once populated, have been deserted. Police officers have sealed off the town and a police curfew was set in place.
You're watching Tok Piksa. 12 days from now, East New Britain Province will celebrate its 20 years after the 1994 Tavurvur eruption that devastated the once scenic town of Rabaul. Those who have lived and worked in Rabaul will always remember the beautiful town before the 94 eruptions. While there are talks to relocate the town and its people, many have shown no sign of leaving the area. Many of them say, although Rabaul town was buried, it's not forgotten and it will remain to be their home. The file footage used in this next segment was filmed by John Eggins and Robin Brown in 1994 during the eruption of Mount Tavurvur.
The 19th of September every year has turned out to be an important day on the East New Britain provincial calendar. 20 years ago, on that day, Tavurvur erupted in a similar manner, pouring dust all over East New Britain province. Rabaul residents who have lived during the time of the 1994 eruption say it was the worst natural disaster that happened in the province.
The eruption of 1994 is probably a big eruption. It was much bigger than what we saw last Friday. In the volcanological community, they use what they call volcano explosivity index, or VEI. This is equivalent to earthquake magnitude. So we have VEIs from 1 up until 8, up to 8. So for the 1994 eruption, the VEI would have been about 3 and maybe 4. For the eruption that we saw, it's 1 or less than 1. So, in terms of magnitude and the volume of material that came out between this eruption and 1994, it's significantly much lower this time.
These pictures, taken during the 1994 eruption, shows the extent of the damages. At 2:51 a.m. on Sunday, 18 September 1994, an initial earth trauma which the Rabaul people have become accustomed to, its urgency changed from stage 1 to a stage 3 alert. With less than 12 hours remaining before the eruption, public announcements were made and people began evacuating the possible danger zones. At 6:07 on Monday morning, the 19th of September 1994, the first vapor of cloud became visible over the top of Mount Tavurvur, and within less than 15 minutes, dense plumes of ashes surfaced and drifted over the town of Rabaul. About 30 minutes later, after Mount Tavurvur blew its top, Vulcan, the sister volcano located on the northeastern end from Mount Tavurvur, also exploded, sending hot gas and dust towards Rabaul town. In less than 24 hours, Rabaul town was declared a state of emergency. This continued for several days, and on the 24th of September, 8 days after Tavurvur and Vulcan blew their tops, the volcanic activities from the two mountains declined significantly, and this was what's left from the 8 days of continuous ashfall. Over 100,000 men, women and children were evacuated to care centers away from Rabaul town. Many others have sought refuge in churches and boarding school facilities. Hospitals and schools were closed, and the usual business at Rabaul town came to an abrupt stop.
Place to attack now. The first place long up go, long place long rakunat, them dust will come down now. Now little stone will come down now. Now long matapin town, and 2 past time.
This is eruption in Kirap. All man all no been run about. Me play Kirap as all me play go long house lotu.
Intensive fault lightning and sheet lightning and so forth. An enormous amount of lightning, especially high intensity fault lightning towards the crater itself.
In regards to the eruption happened in the early morning of 29th, last Friday, 29th August. The eruption happened just after 3 o'clock in the morning. And so, we came out and we saw that the ash was falling. We heard rumbling noises from the volcano. And so, we learned from those explosions and the ash fall that an eruption was going on. For us, for the RVO, we began sending out updates on the eruption since then up until now.
This is the road that leads to the old Rabaul airport. Alongside this road are remnants from the 1994 eruption. Now, after almost 20 years, there's some families who still consider it as their homes. They never thought about rebuilding their lives in a big way because every time they rebuild, the volcanic ashes keeps on falling. You're watching Tok Piksa. 2 days after last Friday's eruption, the national government put forward 1 million kina for relief purposes in all affected areas. The cost of restoring basic services currently stands at 3 million kina. This, the Rabaul District Authority says, is an additional 2 million kina to fully restore basic services and support the affected areas with food and water. Work has already begun over the past 7 days to remove debris left from the eruption, but it may take several weeks, perhaps even months, to complete the work.
Over 100 cartons of rice, biscuits and tinned fish have been supplied to the affected areas in Rabaul over the past 7 days following the eruption of Mount Tavurvur last Friday. The national government has placed 1 million kina to be used to assist the affected areas.
All boards don't be semoli alright, but inside the one kind of same situation in Mikamablo Yellow Rabaul town, where all get a garden, kai and bagarap, got wara. Now used to have something in Mikamablo night where people been expecting this to come up. So at this point in time, people are badly needing water started because got drinking water. Na tu lo kai where all get a garden or something or same me bagarap this land.
At the moment, the Education Authority have instructed us to bring back the credit students only for the classes. And the grade 3s to grade 7s, they'll be away for a while indefinitely until the dust settles and maybe the wind stops blowing. Because it's a bit of health risk to the students.
The authority says food and water will be a priority while it seeks an additional 2 million kina to restore other basic services in and around Rabaul town.
With 1 million is not enough for the disaster in the province. In the province, it needs to be increased. I believe PA to another extra 2 million, a total of 3 million. That can take up for the all people that have been affected by this disaster.
East New Britain, a major producer of cocoa and copra, will see a decline in the level of economic activities too, after a significant portion of cocoa trees and coconut were destroyed. The eruption that happened between 3:30 and 4 a.m. last Friday has driven up the cost of recovery to 3 million kina. The eruption devastated food gardens and water sources, which left many families in Rabaul town, Malaguna, Ratongor and Kurakakaul area without proper drinking water and food supply. Food and water is expected to be provided to the affected areas over the next 3 months. Scenes like these have become common along the affected areas since last Friday's eruption. Trucks are supplying water to the affected villages along Malaguna and other areas along the north coast. For now, families are more concerned about the essentials, drinking and cooking.
Where got kaka straight and got water through drinking this time. And I would like to thank the provincial administrator for the meetings that we have been having here. That all carry Bokloroni go come now long making this work. And also with the water supplies on this side, through me Karaino Butiklik lo water supply tamblo or Rarup where only eruption this la hose and they couldn't fetch water from there, and I had to advise them to quickly get one hose down.
Most of the villagers that rely heavily on garden food will have to find other means to get their food supply. Their crops have already been destroyed. In the heart of the town, dust pollution has become a major concern. In front of stores and homes, men are at work removing ash from Friday's eruption. On the rooftop, a family is at work. If the dust shower falls again anytime soon, they will have to start over again.
We hope you've enjoyed Tok Piksa tonight. If you missed any of tonight's program, you can catch the replay of the show on Wednesday evening. Until next Sunday on Tok Piksa, good night.